The UK pension system faces a deficit measured in trillions. The promises made to millions of workers who spent entire careers contributing to pension schemes may be mathematically impossible to keep, and almost nobody is talking about it. In 2018, the Carillion construction company collapsed overnight. 50,000 workers lost their jobs. But the most devastating consequence was invisible to most news coverage. The company's pension fund had a deficit of £800 million. Workers who had contributed faithfully for decades discovered their promised retirement income was gone. Carillion was not an exception. Across the UK, the combined deficit of defined benefit pension schemes runs to hundreds of billions of pounds. Across the United States, state and local government pension underfunding is estimated at between $2 and $5 trillion, depending on the assumptions you use. The pension time bomb is not a future problem. It is a present reality that will reshape the retirement of an entire generation. To understand the pension crisis, you need to understand the system that was built in the post-war era and why it worked for decades before it stopped working. In the mid-20th century, defined benefit pension schemes, where employers promised a specific income in retirement based on salary and years of service, were the standard. The logic was straightforward. A company employs workers for 30 years. Those workers earn a pension. The company invests contributions over that period, and the returns fund the eventual payouts. This model worked brilliantly when workers joined companies at 20 and retired at 65. It worked when interest rates were 5 to 10% and investment returns were reliable. It worked when companies survived long enough to honor their promises. And critically, it worked when the ratio of working people to retired people made the maths sustainable. All four of those conditions have now changed. The pension system faces three simultaneous and compounding crises. First, the demographic crisis. In 1950, there were 7 working-age adults in the UK for every retired person. Today, that ratio is closer to 3 to 1. By 2050, it will approach 2 to 1. The mathematics of a pay-as-you-go pension system, where today's workers fund today's retirees, depends entirely on that ratio. When the system was designed, it was sustainable. As it shifts, it becomes progressively less so. Second, the longevity crisis. In 1948, when the UK state pension was introduced, average life expectancy was 66. Today, it is 81. People are collecting pension income for 15 more years than the system was designed to fund. A defined benefit scheme that assumed you would retire at 65 and live to 72 is now obligated to pay for 16 additional years of retirement. Third, the investment return crisis. Defined benefit schemes relied on investment returns of 7 to 8% annually to meet their obligations. A decade of near-zero interest rates following 2008 devastated those returns, creating massive deficits in schemes that had previously appeared healthy. The abstract mathematics of pension deficits becomes viscerally real through specific cases. Robert Maxwell was one of Britain's most prominent media tycoons in the 1980s. When he fell from his yacht in 1991 and drowned, investigators discovered that he had secretly plundered £460 million from his company's pension funds to cover corporate debts. 32,000 pensioners faced the loss of their retirement income. the scandal directly led to tighter pension regulation in the UK. In the United States, the collapse of Bethlehem Steel in 2001 wiped out the pension promises of 95,000 workers. United Airlines shed its pension obligations through bankruptcy in 2005, passing a $9.8 billion liability to the Federal Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, which itself has a deficit of tens of billions. Detroit filed for bankruptcy in 2013, partly because of $3.5 billion in unfunded pension liabilities. The pattern repeats across industries, countries, and decades. Pension promises are made in good times and broken in bad ones. The people who suffer are rarely those who made the promises. Beyond corporate pensions, the state pension itself faces serious structural questions. In the UK, the state pension is funded not from a ring-fenced investment pot. There is no pot. It is funded directly from the national insurance contributions of people currently working. This makes it structurally a pyramid scheme that works only as long as the working population continues to grow relative to the retired population. The triple lock, which increases the state pension by the highest of earnings growth, inflation, or 2.5%, was introduced in 2011 as a political commitment. By 2030, the Office for Budget Responsibility projects the state pension will cost over 8% of GDP, up from 5% today. The state pension age has already been raised from 60 for women and 65 for men to a unified 66, with plans to raise it to 67 and then 68. It is highly likely to continue rising. Workers in their 20s today should plan their retirement on the assumption that the state pension, if it exists in its current form at all, will not be available until their late 60s at earliest. The corporate response to the defined benefit crisis has been consistent. Abolish defined benefit schemes and replace them with defined contribution pensions, where the employer contributes a fixed amount rather than promising a fixed outcome. This shifts all investment risk from the company to the individual worker. On the surface, defined contribution schemes sound reasonable. You contribute, your employer contributes. It is invested, and you benefit from the returns. The reality is that most workers lack the financial literacy to make good investment decisions within their pension. Default fund choices are often poor. Charges eat into returns over decades, and unlike a defined benefit scheme, there is no guaranteed income, only a pot of money that may or may not be sufficient, depending on market conditions at the moment you retire. The pension lottery has been handed directly to individuals who were never consulted and never trained to manage it. Multiple independent analyses suggest that the majority of working people in the UK and US are not saving anywhere near enough for retirement. The Pensions Policy Institute estimates that 11 million UK workers are undersaving for retirement. The average DC pension pot at retirement in the UK is approximately £61,000, which at current annuity rates would buy an annual income of around £3,000. Added to the state pension of around £10,000 per year, that is a total retirement income of £13,000 annually, below the poverty line as defined by the Joseph Rowntree Foundation. In the United States, the Federal Reserve's Survey of Consumer Finances found that the median retirement savings for Americans aged 55 to 64, the decade before retirement, is just $134,000. For a 20 to 30-year retirement, that is not a pension. It is a temporary cushion before poverty. The uncomfortable truth is that the systems designed to fund your retirement are structurally compromised, and personal action is the only reliable response. Start by understanding exactly what your pension promises. If you are in a defined benefit scheme, know the deficit status and understand that promises can be reduced in corporate collapse. If you are in defined contribution, increase your contribution rate. Every percentage point you add in your 30s multiplies dramatically by retirement due to compound growth. Utilize ISAs and SIPs beyond workplace pensions. The Lifetime ISA offers a 25% government bonus on contributions up to £4,000 annually for those under 40. Diversify retirement assets beyond pensions. Property, global index funds, and other assets can provide income streams that are not dependent on a single scheme's survival. And most importantly, build a realistic model of what you will actually need. Most people have no idea what retirement costs. The answer, for a comfortable retirement lasting 20 years, is typically more than they expect. The pension time bomb is a slow-motion crisis that politicians have every incentive to ignore and every disincentive to solve. Raising the retirement age loses votes. Cutting pension benefits loses votes. Increasing contributions takes money from workers who already feel financially squeezed. And so the problem compounds quietly, year after year, while the people affected by it are too busy working to pay sufficient attention. The people who will retire comfortably in the coming decades are not those who trusted the system to take care of them. They are those who understood early that the responsibility had been transferred to them and acted accordingly. If you want to be one of those people, subscribe to this channel.